Today on the Failing Up podcast, we have Yolanda Harris Jackson. Yolanda, a native of Nashville, shares her entrepreneurial journey from selling frozen fruit pops as a child to running a luxury spa at Opryland Hotel. Her path took an unexpected turn when she answered a call to ministry, leading her to pursue a master's degree in Christian studies and a deeper understanding of faith and service. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. Let's jump in.
Well, we're super excited. We're excited to hear from a special guest today, but I'm Bethany Voice. I am the Vice President of Strategic Development for Level 8 Platform, and I'm here today with our normal, amazing host, David Huffhaker.
Hi.
We're excited to be here with
Excited.
Failing Up, which is humble lessons in life and business. And as always, we have amazing guests who are going to share their perspective, and we're here today with Yolanda Harris Jackson.
That's right.
That's right. And so we want to start with you just sharing a little bit about yourself and who are you, and tell us about your business, your life. Give us the backstory.
Oh, I tell you. First of all, thank you for having me. Hi, David.
Hi.
Glad to be here. I'm Yolanda Harris Jackson, a native Nashvilleian. Let's start there.
Unique. That's unique.
Unicorns.
Yeah, you're a unicorn.
I'm
And
a
David,
unicorn.
you're a unicorn too.
Yeah.
So
Unicorns.
That's why we get along.
I'm outnumbered right now.
That's for sure. Yes, born here by two amazing parents who allowed me to explore in life. Let me just tell you that. As far as I always wanted to have that, I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I always wanted to do things on my own. Even when I was a kid, I was the one trying to sell frozen fruit pops out of my house, that kind of thing.
I love
So it just kind of carried on in that independence. And, like we're young, we always want to kind of grow up kind of fast. But I'm grateful for that opportunity and those beginnings so that when I did go to college and graduate from college, I started working at a small business. So I knew right early on that I was going to be in the beauty business. Let me just say that. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
That I was going to be in the beauty business. And eventually it took a turn. I was in that business 18 years.
Wow.
18 years. And I would consider myself very successful in that business. I used to run what they call luxury spas. So I ran the spa here at Opryland Hotel, and that was the height of my career. But it was at that time when, about 2012, when I heard God call me into the ministry. And for those of you that may not understand or know what that is, that means that your heart is just pulling on you to do something more that's mission driven, that he just directs you on. So it was off my to-do list and off of my plan, and I just walked in his ways. And so went into ministry, served at a church for a few years. And at the time, ministry is so broad, you have to decide, okay, what exactly do I want to do in ministry? Now, did I tell y'all I'm a PK?
I am too. Look, we
You
got
are
2 and 2.
too.
Yeah. I love it.
So,
yeah. And that's a unique brand.
It
I'm not
is.
gonna lie.
It's very unique. And if you don't know what PK means, it's preacher's kid.
Yeah.
So my father has pastored a church all of my life. I go to church every single Sunday. So answering the call and doing what I felt God was calling me to do at that time was very challenging.
Yeah.
And I did run from it for a while. So it took me to get alone to myself, to come to myself, to realize that I can't fight this anymore. I can't fight it anymore. So I went ahead and was obedient. I said, okay, God, you lead me. So like I was saying, when you get in the ministry, it's so broad. What exactly you want me to do? Because I have the type of personality that I need some direction, like exactly where you want me to do so I can put all of my energy, because I have I can obsess over things.
Yeah.
So if I need to learn something, I'm going to obsess over it until I embody it, to be honest with you. And so I didn't have that thing to obsess over. So it was kind of like I was just out there walking
Floating
by
around.
faith. And so when people ask me to do anything, as long as in that realm of serving God and serving people, loving God and serving people, I did it. So serving at that church, it stretched me. But it taught me more and more how to really serve people and help people. So it was building on the hospitality background that I already had, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm serving them in another capacity.
So
And
how long did you operate in that space, right? Where you leaned in, right, to God's calling, and then now you're kind of this just floating around, right? And you're looking for your anchor.
Looking for
how
anchor.
long? How long did that go on before you feel like you landed?
I left corporate America in 2014. So about a year and a half in, after serving at the church, I realized that, okay, my walk is not going to look like my dad's walk. And I think that's what I was running from the whole time before, right? So, and I started to embrace that. And so do the trials and tests and the ups and downs and the storms of my marriage. That's what God called me to. The one thing that I was embarrassed the most. You know, I know this podcast is called Failing Up. I was not good in being married. You know, and didn't understand that. And so my husband is, and I struggled so much, I thought that, you know what, I guess I just gonna have to give this up. You know, I guess I'm not the marriage type. And so that's one of the big things that I had to face, but God had a different plan. And his plan was for me to surrender to his will, right? And my answer was just yes. And at that point, my husband was still struggling. My husband had struggling a 20+ year alcohol addiction.
Wow.
Yeah. And so just because someone has a physical addiction you can see doesn't mean you don't have problems also that's also causing or reflecting that in that marriage.
Right.
So, but you wouldn't, now back then I wouldn't say that.
A lot of growth has taken me to here, right?
Yeah,
hindsight's 20/20. We talk about that a lot, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. In my opinion, it was his fault.
Oh, yeah.
It was the husband's fault, David, right?
You hear that in a lot of marriages, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
And you do. You mature.
Yes.
I think there is a maturity in some form in a marriage where you take this extreme ownership approach, right? And
That's
understand that, like, whatever it is, especially in a union like
Yeah.
that, right? Where it's both parties, right? Like my wife and I are very, we have a great relationship now, and I think that a lot of marriages go through those struggles, right? I think it's part of the process, right? And
is.
nothing wrong. Some make it, some don't. I think that it's being able to. It's an inside thing, not an outside thing. right?
Absolutely.
Like the problem in the marriage, I think younger would look up and go like, well, if you would just do this, or
Yes.
if you would just do that, or if you would just do what you're supposed to do, right? And then you look up and you go like, okay, well, I can't control you.
Yeah.
Right? I can only you start to look inside and you're like, okay, who am I? Where am I showing up?
Absolutely.
And once I started working on me, it's funny how that reflected in our relationship, right?
That's right.
And it became like, okay, well, then I learned like, okay, the more I spend focusing on who can I be? How do I be the very best husband that I can be? How do I be that support person? How do I be who she needs me to be? What the father I need to be? How do I be a Superman husband? You know, we talk about that on here, like for all the 1-3-5s and business planning that we might do for our companies.
Right.
I still get onto myself because I still yet to sit down and write out the business plan for being a phenomenal husband, right? The 1-3-5 for being the father I want to be.
That's right.
It's the eulogy exercise
Right.
you go through, right?
That's
like,
right.
what do you want your kids to say about you?
Yeah.
That I do play in my head a few times and try to figure out, like, how do I be the person that I want
Them to say.
that they then see that and become who they are. So, yeah.
That's right. I just, it's so important. I really had to, it started with awareness. I believe everything starts with awareness. Be aware that there is something inside of you that's even giving you that perspective that is someone else's fault. So I had to face that. And so at the time when, God called me to the ministry, I said, okay, I'm going to go to school because I don't really know about all of this and how this works. So I actually went to school and got my master's in Christian studies. And I did that for me.
Yeah.
Not to get a job, a position, or anything else, because my personality, and maybe someone out there can relate, I have a lot of squirrel moments. Squirrel, what? You want me to study? What the Lord? I don't know. Let me get up. It's time to do something else.
I think that's all of
That's our
us.
whole
Yeah, that's
industry.
our whole industry in real
yeah,
estate.
absolutely.
Maybe it's just life in general.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Squirrel.
But when you go to school and you get your master's, you have to intently focus, right? So it made me focus and really not only just understand God's word, really know who God is and his divine character and who he is and how I can embody that as well as apply it to my life. As the Bible says, don't be just hearers of the word, but be doers of the word as well. So that's what I was able to do. And for, I would say, 18 months is when God started working in my husband. And unfortunately, it was due a tragic motorcycle accident. So one day we were driving down, coming out of Hendersonville, and a truck hit him, right? I was able to get out of the way. I was on my motorcycle. He was in front, and another guy who had worked with me in the hospitality business was with me. And when we were coming down the highway, the truck hit him.
Wow.
And so that changed the trajectory of our marriage. And after 6 months of healing, God performed that miracle in our marriage. Healed him, then healed us together.
Yeah.
And then that's when we started knowing that marriage ministry was what we had to do.
Yeah.
How long have y'all been doing that for now? I think it's really neat that y'all do these retreats and really focus on ministry through couples, right? And it's I don't even have to ask the questions because you're kind of already answering along the way. But
Yeah.
we talk about like the failure moments or what's happened in the past that felt like tragedy that ultimately ended up being a
turning
blessing.
point,
And,
Yes.
and it sounds like for you, right, that your marriage, you know, God takes you through that, because had you not experienced the pain, right, had you not experienced all of what you just said, you wouldn't really be in a position to help others.
That's right.
And so until
Absolutely.
you've kind of done it and been through it, you can't sometimes, especially on that emotional of a topic,
That's right.
until you experience those pains and had to kind of navigate through it
Right.
yourself. You somewhat became the authority on how to lead a marriage well through Christ.
That's right.
And so you guys started doing this. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So after about 6 months, we realized that, hey, God has done something through our marriage. He really has healed us. We don't argue like we used to. And I used to tell people how I just stood in the gap until God worked on my husband and did whatever he had to do.
Yeah.
Didn't know it would come that tragically, right?
Right.
But thank God he is here with us, and he is disabled on his right leg. But however, we started telling our story. We started
Right.
writing books and speaking all over the country. And that's been a blessing. So we've been doing that since 2016.
Yeah.
So we host marriage retreats, conferences. We help people with premarital, and that's how I got into real estate.
Premarital counseling. Really?
Premarital counseling.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so tell us that journey, right? Because we know real estate's a part of your story now
Yes.
too, and it's another way
Yes.
you minister to people. So through premarital counseling, what were the steps that made you think real estate was the way to go?
Well, when he first gave us the vision, he said that, we would eventually he would bring everything I had in the hospitality business together, twofold, into marriage. And so he told us, God, we both were on a road trip. And since God's saying to us that we're going to have this place called Live in Peace, like called the Peace Ranch, right? And because that's how God changed our marriage. When you have peace in your heart, you have peace in your home, right? And so then you share that with other people to help them have their peace and learn how to protect their peace. So that's our base message, is to live in peace. And so, but I was always like, babe, we go out and we speak, but financially, I remember I left corporate America.
Yeah.
I had a great job.
Yeah.
With a lot of employees, a lot of responsibility, a lot of great benefits.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't gotten back to that level yet.
Yep.
And one day I was praying about it in my prayer closet, and God said, real estate. And I said, real estate? I don't want to do that. So here I am again, negotiating with God, because that's who I am, an expert negotiator. I will tell you that.
So real estate was a great pick for you.
It was. I'm an expert.
That's what God said. He's like, you can negotiate
trust
like
me.
this.
Yeah,
We
and
need
he's
to get
thinking
you in
he's
the real estate
negotiated with
space.
you for a
He
long
knows
time.
farther in advance what we need more than
Yeah.
anything. So he said real estate, and I honestly we did not have the money to send me to real estate school.
Yeah.
But I said, if we take the first step, then God will provide the next step. So the first step was to pay the $300 or whatever it cost to go to real estate school. Didn't have that. But we did have a deep freezer that was being not used in our home. We sold that deep freezer for $300 to this Christian school right outside of Mount Juliet. And that's how I went to real estate school.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And
That's
God
amazing.
provided the steps.
Always a way.
Always after that. He did. He provided the steps. So we've always said that real estate feeds our marriage ministry.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going in real estate. And so it's a beautiful thing to see when we have premarital counseling with a couple.
Yeah.
We've even married couples, because we're both ministers. We marry them and then prepare them for the journey, and then we help them get a house.
Yeah, amazing. And to not go too far off our topic of failure, right? David and I have this conversation a lot. Like, female leaders sometimes can show up different than male leaders, and I think we need all of them to coexist to help guide our communities, right? How do you feel like, for you as a really strong female leader, how have you shown up to maybe help other people realize their place and be able to guide them on that leadership journey? And we all know that's a lot through failure sometimes, right? But for you, how does that show up that's been uniquely just maybe unique to who you are and what you're trying to accomplish through all of the work that you do?
Well, I tell you, when I see others, I can really see the potential in a lot of people. So one of my leadership qualities is to really assist them and support them in pulling that out of them.
Yeah.
Right. And you do that through what we do a lot in real estate, is asking the right questions at the right time so they can receive that answer.
Yeah.
Also, really helping people understand to keep the interests of others before yourself.
Yeah.
Really learn how to serve others. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned. I was a very selfish, controlling individual boss woman. That's who I was.
Yeah.
I took a lot after my dad. My mom was very humble, and I used to be like, Mom, won't you speak up? You know, I wouldn't say it in front of them, but that's what I would say when I get in my room, right? So I took out a lot of him, and through failed other relationships in the past, you know, I just became this really controlling person. So part of my husband's healing, I had to learn to serve him. So that's a quality I actually take on as a leader that I hope can instill in other people and help them find that.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is, if service is below you, leadership will always be beyond you.
That's absolutely. Jesus said he did not come to be served. He came to serve. Yeah. So my goal is to follow the steps that he laid out in front of us.
What a great example of that, right? That Jesus provides for us, that you're role modeling for others, and that we've learned on our journey, right? I think all of us probably start in a position of, you know, how does this serve me and what's going on in my life? And then you realize that like life is so much more fulfilling when you look up and find others around you to lift up. My success is 100% a reflection of my willingness to try to serve others in some capacity. And it took a journey of selfishness and foolishness and egocentric, you know, I know what's going on and I'm in control. And as soon as I was able to get beyond that, right, like all of these doors start opening up. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'll also say, like, I value your firm resolve in Christ, right? Like you're just all in. And I went and had a men's lunch yesterday with a couple of professionals, and just speaking about it in terms of like, how do we lead well in our companies as Christian men? How do we lead well in our houses? Yeah. And not always getting it right? Yeah. Like we don't all have, like, I'm always so envious of you, you're planted, right? And I want that, right? Like I want that firmness in it. And yet a lot of us on our journey are still seeking, you know, we're still kind of, that's why I asked at the beginning, how long did you wander before you found an answer? And a lot of us are squirrels, right? And so we are not, I am guilty of asking the question and then not listening for the answer, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, he's got to be like, I keep telling you.
Right. You keep telling
I think that's a great question, though, because, and we've said this before on other episodes, is like, now we can all sit here and we can talk about the failures and talk about what we learned. And again, hindsight's 20/20, so it all seems easy and we can see what it got us to. But for those listeners that are in the midst of some of the failures that you experienced, right? What would you share with them? What would be that piece of advice? Because I think when you're in it and you're down in the pit and life's going astray, and whether it be personal or professional, it just feels like the end of the road, which from your story, right? You were there. Yeah. What do you tell those people now sitting on the other side of it?
I would say understand and have a healthy perspective that this is not the end, this is the beginning. Yeah. And sometimes the beginning looks like this, but you will get out of this. And that's what we all have to hold on to, is that you will get out of this. Yeah. You just have to understand that you may need support to get out of it, and be okay with that. Right? Yeah. Be okay that it may take some other voices and other people, your leaders, or, you know, if you're a leader yourself and you're actually, you know, in that place, surround yourself with other mentors that can help get you out of that place, because this is not the end. It's only the beginning, and the rest of it is going to be beautiful as long as you're willing to walk in it.
I love that.
Well, and I think to your story, right? Don't wait for this tragedy to happen that makes you recognize that, like, you only have this brief moment here.
Exactly.
100%.
And we get so caught up in the minutia of the day and the stresses and the frustrations. And again, you back up and I look up and I go, what a beautiful world we get to be a part of, and the relationships we get to build with each other. And that's the gold, right?
Yeah. It is the gold.
When you recognize that, like, okay, we say it a lot, this too shall pass, right? Like whether you're on your high or your low or whatever, it's a journey. Being able to show up for people in that way. So if people are listening to this and maybe they have been in a similar situation to you, or they want to reach out and hear more about your ministry or how they can connect with you, both in terms of real estate in Middle Tennessee or in terms of their faith or their marriage, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Well, first of all, I can help you get into a great home.
That's right.
Because we just believe in the concept of marriage plus real estate equals legacy, and so we blend those two together. So if you're looking to build a legacy of love through real estate and through marriage, then yes, I'm your girl. You can go to the huffacregroup.com/Yolanda Harris Jackson. You can find me there, or you can go to any of the social media platforms at Yolanda Harris Jackson or Billy and Yolanda. That's where you find our marriage marriage ministry.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. And you do such a great job putting your brand out there and really just it's been cool to watch your growth, and I'm grateful to be a part of some of that and maybe providing some structure and some streamlines of being able to take the business part of it, right, and make that a little bit more commonplace as you kind of navigate it and all the families you're going to get to serve going forward. Bethany, anything before we wrap up?
I'd like to say something before we wrap up.
Absolutely.
And just to thank you, David, for the opportunity to be on your team. A lot of people think, well, you get on a team and you get under this great leadership when you first start, but not necessarily so. You know, I'm an experienced agent, right? Yeah. I'm a real estate expert. And so I still get on the umbrella of great people and come in line with them. And before I got on the team, I kept asking myself, do I believe in myself enough to reach the goals that are set out before me on this team? Because you have to do so much more, you know, and it's so much more that you receive, though. Yeah. So can I receive that, but also be willing to do it? Do I believe in myself enough? And so it took a little time, and then I realized, believe in yourself enough, right? Absolutely. Take that first step, get on the team and learn. And I have learned so much, you know, and I've been able to be aware of so many other things. And really, honestly, that's what I got on the team for, you know, to help with that aspect of it. So a lot of times you got to align yourself with the right leaders that are doing the right things.
Yeah, and I think that speaks a lot to the world that Bethany's created, that Joseph, all of our leaders have created in terms of so many options out there of where you go for real estate success, and yet being able to plug into what we say, right? It's not about what you get, it's about who you become. Who you become. And the culture of our community is what makes it so unique. And so if you're interested in being a part of that, right, reach out to Bethany, reach out to Joseph. Yeah. They'd love to be, we're always looking for people that think that way, right? Because it is different than how most companies are ran or most teams. So thank you for saying that.
You'll be glad you did.
Yeah, that's right. Last thing, and I know we're going to change up. We always ask our guests, right? Like you're fast forward the clock, it's 100 years later, and maybe we're at the end of our time. We want to avoid, what are some of the regrets you want to avoid? For you specifically, I want to change it up a little bit, though.
Okay.
Because I know the type of person you are, and you've answered a lot of the questions we normally have for our guests. But we're fast forward the clock, we're at the end of our time here on Earth. What do you want to impress on the people that you get to be impacted by you and in your community? What's the one word that you hope sums it all up for you?
The one word is legacy. The one word is legacy, that people will say that she loved God and she served people.
I love that. That's
awesome.
And I think you're doing an amazing job. Yeah. Thanks so much for all you do, Yolanda. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right.